Wellhouse Leisure have built a name for themselves thanks to their well-built, manufacturer-certified campervans based on a wide range of vehicles such as the Toyota Pro-Ace and the Ford Transit Custom. Over the years, they've won just about every award going in the campervan industry and have built thousands of vehicles. They're known for their build quality and their enthusiasm to push the boundaries and embrace new technologies. Most important of all, they're very proud of their Yorkshire roots. And don't worry, they're better at building campervans than they are at presenting. But how did it all start for them?
My earliest recollection of childhood, which is now a long time ago, was 1974, 3 years old, sat at bottom at Eiffel Tower having an ice cream, and I remember these memories of being in a campervan, which was an Austin Paralanium, and we lived in a little terraced house in centre of Sheffield. My dad were a delivery driver, and he used to go to work on bus back in them days, and I always remember at weekends my mum would have this Austin old like a beige thing all packed up for the weekend ready to go on holiday. So I always remember coming home from school, well, nursery school back then, so 3, 4, 5 years old, and that's probably where it all started from. So then in about 1977, 76, 77, my dad went self-employed, and I remember the day that he sold that motorhome. I remember it driving off, looking out my bedroom window, and that would end up going away with family as in a motorhome for a few years, and that were it for that. So we're originally just before Wellhouse in the mid-90s. Myself and my dad had a company called Deep Car Motorhomes, and we used to do all the old part exchanges from the main dealers. Then in 1998 we set up another company called Deep Car Motorhomes International with a German guy, and we started importing lots and lots of Heimers, Volkswagen Westphalias from Germany, and for the next 4 years it were backwards and forwards from Germany every week, up at 3 o'clock in the morning, early flights from Stansted, and late nights back. Great in summer, sat having a Weiss beer outside a nice pub on way back, and if it were a 2-day trip. In winter, many nights in -5 conditions where there were no gas bottle left in van and things like that, so nearly freezing to death. And we carried on doing that right up until 2002, which we then parted ways, and that's when I set Wellhouse up. So originally when we started Wellhouse, the idea was never Japanese campers. I had a brother who lived in Fort Lauderdale in Florida at the time, so the idea was to do some American ones and to do other different types of things, maybe some different caravans from Europe, and that didn't really materialise, so we decided that we were going to look at these vehicles from Japan. And I remember first finding them on internet back then, and there was no Google back then. The search engine was actually called Hotbot, and I wouldn't advise anybody to put that into a search engine nowadays, because Hotbot's long gone and you get all sorts of weird things come up for that. But we found within a few months we'd found these weird looking things called Mazda Bongos. So in September 2002, myself and a mate of mine, Vaughan England, who used to own AVA Leisure, which is another converter from many years ago, jumped on an aeroplane, went to Nagoya in Japan, and found these quirky little Mazda Bongos, and then many other things. One of the reasons we did the Japanese vehicles, and we realised this when we landed in Japan quickly, is the specification of them were incredible. You compared to an old manual Fiat Ducato VW T4 from an early mid-90s vehicle to what was in Japan. I mean, things like electric window blinds, twin airbags, ABS, 4-wheel drive, automatic central locking, tinted windows, air conditioning that worked, alloy wheels. It was an endless list. It was like winning jackpot. The only problem we had in the early days is we could never build the amount that we probably needed. So it took, as we were building Wellhouse up, lots of other people obviously started to do these imports. But we're still in touch with the same people and still use the same people we've used from day one, which is an important thing. But yeah, the Japanese vehicles were incredible. So I think lots of things that we've done over the years have always been some sort of prompt. So I can remember, seeing the first Japanese vehicles, then the visits to Japan, and then we saw different ones. So the Hondas, Toyotas, Toyota Sparky, Daihatsus. So we went through a series of different vehicles from Japan. Then fast forward up to around 2008, 2009, I was in New Zealand, and one day I saw this vehicle called Hyundai i800. Just drove past and I thought, that looks different. So Googled it, or whatever it was at the time, and found that this vehicle had just started to come to the UK. So by the time we got back to off holiday, we'd already spoke to Hyundai UK, bought the first van, and that was the first real push at doing the new vans. We'd done a few new Toyota power vans, but not really. They were too basic compared to what the Japanese ones were. And then we had a real good few years doing Hyundais. Won us first awards with them, did us first NEC shows, and the Hyundai i800, fortunately they don't import it anymore, but it were a fantastic vehicle. 5-year warranty on it, and just nice dealing in brand new vehicles. Hyundai were a great company to work with as well. We went on to build, I think, at least 300 of them, won quite a few awards with them as well. So trying to find something that was like what we were doing from Japan, so something that was like a car, and European vehicles was difficult. We've never really done much with the VW T5, T6, not because we didn't like it, because everybody else did it, and as everybody knows, it's an expensive vehicle. Then one day we were walking out of the NEC in 2012 and we saw a left-hand drive prototype of a Ford Tourneo Custom. And we stopped, we stared at it, and we went, wow, that's different. And didn't think anything of it for another 2 or 3 weeks. Then saw some press releases that this new Ford was being released, and for the first time Ford had brought a vehicle out that was near to what we did from Japan. So we spoke with Ford, spoke with this local dealer, and we were actually one of the first to get one in the UK, a Ford Transit Custom. And this was early in 2013 when they'd just been released, and we sent two. We had two. We did one that went to Germany, to Rimo, to have the roof and seat system developed. The other one we developed at the same time for the interior, and we somehow managed to get one to the NEC show in 2013, where I think the glue was still wet on it, and we were finishing it like the day before. Turned up at the NEC show with this all new product that nobody had seen, and I think even we underestimated then what we'd actually created. And from there, the history with Ford is, people, it's plain to see. We've now converted at least 1,300, 1,400 of them. Multiple awards we've won with them as well, and to this day we're still doing them. And by the time the model ends in mid 2023, we'll have been doing them for 10 years and probably done over 1,500 of them. So moving on to 2016, everything were good with Ford, but we still felt that we needed something else to do new, and we were approached by Toyota with the new Toyota Pro Ace. Now the Pro Ace is actually a joint vehicle venture with Peugeot Group, so it's a Peugeot, Citroën, now a Fiat, a Vauxhall and an Opel and a Toyota. So it's 6 badges with one vehicle. And at first we declined. We said no, it's not something for us. We then had one on test and we really liked it, and we realised that the Toyota was slightly different in terms of how it was built. It was, although it was built at a Peugeot factory in France, it then goes down a separate line that Toyota do slightly different things to them, and they also had a longer warranty. And when we saw the vehicle and drove it, we realised this was something else that we could offer that was a bit more car-like to the Ford Custom. It was slightly smaller, under 2 metres high. So we did the first one in, I think we launched it in about early 2017, and again that's gone on to be a great success. At the moment I think we've done over 350 of them, and we've also won many awards with that one as well. So when we started in 2002, we had quite a small unit, which some weeks we wish we were still back in that small unit, and a nice low rent. And as we expanded quickly, we moved across the road and had a showroom. And then in around 2016, we moved to Skelmanthorpe, and we stayed. That we were only there 3 years. Wasn't the best place that we were at. Wasn't big enough. And then in June 2020, right in the middle of COVID, we moved to these current premises where we are now, which is absolutely fantastic for us. Over 10,000 square foot. The building's almost purpose built for what we need and how we do it. So for the first time in 20 years, or it was 18 years, everything was on one premises. So all the different departments were together. So the vans go from one bay to another rather than to different buildings. The wood shop, the parts department, the offices, everything is in one place. So for the last 2.5 years, it's been fantastic for us. So the current process now is all the conversions are built in the wood shop. Once they're assembled up there, they're then lifted down into the workshop. We have 3 different sections in the workshop. We have roof fitting area. We have stage 2, which is doing all the lining out and putting the floors in. Then we have stage 3, which is where they do all the final conversions. And then stage 4, which is PDI and valet. Each of those bays has 3 to 4 vans in. So at any one time, these 12 to 14 vehicles in the workshop being built. So it's become quite an operation, and I now video all the customers' vans at least 2 or 3 times a week. So a job that took me 5 minutes to do is now nearly an hour to video them all and send the videos on. So it's quite an operation now compared to where we used to be. So in terms of approval, Wellhouse has probably always tried as hard as we possibly can to have the current approvals, even if that takes longer to do, and some of the expense that we've had over the years is incredible for a small company. So we first started with ISO 9001, which we've had that accreditation well over 10 years, 12 years now. Then in terms of type approval, the first full type approval we did were back in 2012 on the Hyundai i800. And I think if we knew what was involved in terms of the costs, we probably wouldn't have done it. It was in excess of £60,000-70,000 to do a full test. We had to buy a full shell and destroy the shell and do the seat testing, and I think we totally underestimated how much was involved, not just money, but also in terms of hours and what it takes to get these approval. But at the end of it, we had this shiny full European type approval certification that nobody else had for vehicles in our class. We carried on, and we've also done that for the Ford Custom. We now have it for the Toyota ProAce that's come through as well. And each one of these tests nowadays is in excess of £50,000 to do. Hence why once we do a vehicle, we need to keep doing the same ones over and over again. So in terms of the European type approval, one of the reasons that we wanted to get this and needed to get it is at the time we wanted to sell through Ford and Toyota dealers. So it was really important that from their point of view that we had this accreditation. And a type approval certificate involves everything from the weight of the vans, which is why we use higher payload vans. And in terms of the seats, all the seats are tested, not just tested on a test bed, which a lot of people say it's an M1 tested seat. The seats in our Fords and Toyotas are actually tested inside the vehicle. So we've had to destroy a Toyota Pro Ace shell, a Ford Custom shell. Same with this front seat swivels as well. All the things like our fridges, electrical equipment, all have to be E-marked. The heaters in the van, so anything that you're using while you're driving has to have an E-mark on. So any heaters that are coming into UK that don't have an E-mark, we can't use them, nor do we want to use them. Same with the seat systems. They've got to be of a particular quality. So what we do on our vans is exactly the same as what a car manufacturer would do. So all that rigorous testing that they have to go through on any new vehicle that we do the same thing. And in terms of costs, this is what brings in the residual values of a Wellhouse van. That's what makes them, that's why they're expensive when they're new. Some people say to me, why are they so expensive? When you look at our seat systems that are costing around €5,000 per van, we can buy another seat system that's not tested for £1,500 per van. Things like that. A lot of people, when you actually sit down and take it into consideration, that's why not just ours but other camper vans are as expensive as what they are if they've got all the right equipment in. So on to charity work. I think we're quite privileged at Wellhouse in terms of what we do, and we like to put things back into community. So over years we've worked with local schools to try and encourage school leavers to come into a trade, and we've done quite a lot with various charities. This all started back in 2007 when I did the London Marathon, and many people have said you're not built for marathons, and I used to say I'm too tall, and they give me a funny look. So I did them anyway, and then that carried on into doing another London Marathon, and then we finished up, we decided to do a multi-marathon challenge. So I've done a couple of 10 marathons in 10 days. That then led on to doing we had some charity balls as well. So we had one in, I think it was 2011, 2014, and then again in 2022. And all in all, I think from all that little lot, we've raised in excess of £60,000 for lots of local charities. And then in 2020 and 2021, we worked with the BBC and Toyota and donated a Toyota Pro Ace camper, which in the first year raised 1.1 million, and the second year raised about 550,000, which in total is about 1.6 million. I think we've raised for BBC, which really means that I could have done. I didn't really need to do all them marathons, and I could have just donated a camper van to BBC. But there you go. But it tries to. I think it helps keep me fit. But we do like to put something back. It's not a gimmick. It's hard work doing charity things, and as a company, we've always had that responsibility of trying to work especially with local charities. We always try and get across to customers how important it is to visit premises, not just ours. There's lots of other companies out there that's like Wellhouse that do what we do and do a great job. But there are also lots of people out there that are different from Wellhouse in many different ways. So we can't stress enough how important it is not to go out and buy a camper van, but to go out and look round, look in depth at how people build them. Why do they use certain parts? How do they put them together? The accreditations and things like that. You're going to spend a lot of money on a camper van. It's worthwhile going out and looking round as many different converters as you can to try and get a background as to who builds what and why. There's a reason that everybody's priced differently. There's a lot more people cheaper than Wellhouse than what there are that are more expensive, but there's also there's a reason for that. So we cannot stress enough, come and have that proper factory tour, sit in the vans, but more importantly, look at how they're built and put together. So when you visit Wellhouse, first of all, most people's come a long way, so they need loo and a cup of tea. We then get into showing you around, so we show you how the vans are built. So we show you the roofing department, then the second stage, and then the final build. And we show you the woodwork department, which is always quite interesting. We show you how we start from the beginning of laying that first piece of wood right up to a full conversion and how it's put together. We have a separate area where people choose the woods, and if you're having leather, different leather samples. So nothing's rushed. We actually encourage people, if you do come and visit, don't buy on a visit. It's a lot to take in, and you know, we say to people, go away, mull it over, have a think, is this the sort of thing that you want to be buying?